Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. I am your faithful Raven, and today we shall be reading On Artaeum by Taos Il Anselma. The Isle of Artaeum is the third largest island in the Somerset archipelago, located south of the Moradunon village of Patansa and west of the mainland village of Runkebe. It is best known for being home to the Psijic order, perhaps the oldest monastic group in Tamriel. The earliest written record of the Psijics is from the 20th year of the First Era, and tells the tale of the renowned Breton sage and author Vernet, travelling to the Isle of Artaeum to meet with Iachesis, the right master of the Psijics. Even then, the Psijics were the counselors of kings and proponents of the Elder Way, taught to them by the original race that inhabited Tamriel. The Elder Way is a philosophy of meditation and study, said to bind the forces of nature to the individual will. It differs from Magica in origin, but the effects are much the same. That said, it is perhaps more than a coincidence that the Isle of Artaeum literally vanished from the shores of Somerset at the beginning of the Second Era, at about the time of the founding of the Mages' Guild in Tamriel. Various historians and scholars have published theories about this, but perhaps none but Iachesis and his own could shed light on the matter. 500 years passed, and Artaeum returned. The Psijics on the isle consisted of persons, mostly elves, who had disappeared and were presumed dead in the Second Era. They could not or would not offer any explanation for Artaeum's whereabouts during that time, or the fate of Iachesis and the original Council of Artaeum. Currently, the Psijics are led by the lore master Celarus, who has presided over the Council of Artaeum for the last 250 years. The Council's influence in Tamraelian politics is tidal. The kings of Somerset, particularly those of Moradunon, have often sought the Psijics' opinion. Emperor Uriel V was much influenced by the council in the early, most glorious parts of his reign, before his disastrous attack on Akavir. It has even been suggested that the fleet of King Orgum of Paiodene was destroyed by a joint effort of Emperor Antiochus and the Psijic order. The last four emperors, Uriel VI, Moriatha, Pelagius IV, and Auriel VII, have been suspicious of the Psijics enough to refuse ambassadors from the Isle of Artaeum within the imperial city. The Isle of Artaeum is difficult to chart geographically. It is said that it shifts continuously, either at random or by decree of the council. Visitors to the island are so rare as to be almost unheard of. Anyone desirous of a meeting with the Psijics may find contacts in Patansa and Runkebe, as well as many of the kingdoms of Somerset. Were it more accessible, Artaeum would be a favored destination for travelers. I have been to the isle once, and still dream of its idyllic orchards and clear pastures, its still and silent lagoons, its misty woodlands, and the unique Psijic architecture that seems to be as natural as its surroundings, as well as wondrous in its own right. The Sephora Tower, in particular, I would study, for it is a relic from a civilization that predates the High Elves by several hundred years, and is still used in certain rites by the Psijics. Perhaps one day I might return. Note: the author is currently on the Isle of Artaeum by gracious consent of Master Sargenius of the Council of Artaeum. With Artaeum being the third largest island, I have certain doubts that its disappearance didn't cause massive damage to the ecology and weather systems of the Somerset Isles. A giant island doesn't just go missing and have no effect on the surrounding environments. The island of Artaeum, or at least the Elder Way, seems to have some sort of life-extending property. Considering the average lifespan of Mer is roughly 200 to 300 years, we see that the supposedly Mer, Celarus, has been serving as leader for the whole lifespan of many other elves. And to make an even more extreme point, Eochasis himself, who would have been about 2,900 years old at the disappearance of Artaeum. Now, most other sources put the maximum potential age of elves at about 1,000 years, so the age of some of the Psijics must be astronomical compared to their brethren. To continue with Eochasis, I believe that there are three possible explanations for his disappearance. First, he and his council died of their extremely old age, and the Psijics might not want to admit this because it disproves any possible immortality that the Elder Way might bring. Secondly, there was a coup. Perhaps the Psijics got fed up with his leadership and tried to kill him and his council. Maybe his death was what caused Artaeum to return to Nirn after 500 years, because whatever magic he was performing had become undone. Or thirdly, he went the way of the Dwemer, that is to say, he simply disappeared into oblivion, maybe willingly, maybe not. But I find the second, the potential of the coup, to be most likely and most interesting. We are given a list of emperors in this book, and using this we can estimate that the book was written roughly around the Third Era 380, which means that Celarus has been the leader of the Psijics since the Third Era 130, but we know that Artaeum returned to Nirn a few decades or centuries before that, meaning there was a gap between Artaeum's return and Celarus's precedence over the Council of Artaeum. So I would like to know who was in charge during that time between Return and Celarus. Given that Artaeum is the third largest island in the archipelago, I don't think that it would be that difficult to track naturally, because obviously if an entire island is moving, unless it's moving out into open water, it's going to butt up or disrupt some other land masses, which leads me to believe that the island is probably magically obscured, or psychically obscured, rather, or perhaps they live in a demi-plane, an extra dimension, sort of on Nirn and sort of not. The Psijic Order, just from the name alone, seems to have a form of psychic power, which seems to follow the fantasy trend of arcane magic and psionic abilities being diametrically opposed, despite having similar results. We see that magicka comes from the exterior, from spellbooks and scrolls and soul gems and study, and from the power of Magnus, whereas psionics, the Psijics, comes from within through meditation and philosophy and ancestor worship and the force of will. Within D&D, for example, one of the primary sources of inspiration for the Elder Scrolls, psionics and arcana aren't even compatible power sets. So I'm wondering if perhaps the Psijics if the Psijics would be able to use magicka along with their own innate abilities. Through my research, I have found that the Elder Way refers to a form of ancestor worship preached by the Aldmer, not the Altmer, the Aldmer, during the Merethic era. However, this seems to be in opposition to what is said in the book, because the Aldmer weren't even close to being the original race on Tamriel. Perhaps these beliefs were possessed by the Elnafey, the ancient ancestors of Almer, or perhaps it's just typical Altmer arrogance and egoism, considering that even the Elnafey weren't the first. They were visitors, almost aliens coming from another plane. I'm also inclined to believe that the architecture on Artaeum is not Psijic in origin, perhaps the remnants of Elnafey settlements that they revere. The Sippora Tower, in particular, is significant because it was vital in the formation of the Mages Guild on Tamriel. The book ends with an editor's note that states that the author is on the island of Artaeum. This is indeed a great honor for him, because from the author's name, I doubt that he is an Altmer. In fact, I don't recognize any racial naming system that would match his name. But I will hazard a guess and say that he might be a Redguard or an Imperial just from his surname. Now, my own cynical reasoning for his invitation to Artaeum could be that the Psijics just didn't want him talking about them and their secret order anymore. Because obviously, if he wrote a whole book on them, it's going to compromise their own sort of secrecy and exclusiveness. As of the 4th Era 100, the Psijic Order disappeared once again. But we do get to interact with them in the College of Winterhold questline in the Elder Scrolls V, which is one of the most significant interactions with the Psijic Order, apart from in Elder Scrolls Online Somerset, where there is a whole questline and you get to actually visit the island of Artaeum and speak to Rite Master Iachesis. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you would like to leave a like, go ahead. If you would like to subscribe, go ahead. I'm not going to force you. I don't care.